Hello, internet. If you care too much about your art, you're going to ruin it. So just make it. Stop caring so much. I think that's really true a lot of the time. And I wanted to start by telling a story from my personal life about when I auditioned for music school. So I went to the school to audition. It was like a scheduled thing. Drove with my dad for, hours to get there, stayed overnight, got a tour of the school beforehand. And when I was practicing, the weeks leading up to the audition, I kept messing up a lot of things. I didn't really know my scales all that well. And there were certain excerpts that I was supposed to learn that honestly, I just didn't put enough time into learning because, I'm a lazy person and it's hard for me to bring myself to do things that require discipline. So, this is the only school I applied for, by the way. So, I was kind of just hoping it worked out. And I went up there, and the night before, I was in the hotel, and I just sat in the shower for an hour just thinking, I'm like, "Why am I even here? This is stupid. I'm not gonna get in. I'm wasting my dad's time. I'm wasting my own time." So, I went into the audition the next day with the mentality that it didn't even matter what I did because it didn't matter if I got in or not because I decided I didn't care, and it just wasn't important to me anymore, and it was probably one of the best auditions I've ever had because I didn't have nerves. I let all that go and I actually knew the music better than I thought. I was just in my head and thinking that I was like, some failed attempt at an artist when in reality, the practicing that I was doing actually did pay off. Now, was it perfect? No, but I also was 18 years old auditioning for school. So when you're auditioning to go to music school, there's this idea that you're going to get better at music and pay for your education so that you get better at music. So, they're not expecting you to do everything perfectly. But I did so much better than I ever thought I was going to do. I remembered so much more than I thought I was going to remember, and I ended up getting into the school and I even got like a tiny bit of a scholarship from just based off my audition. Actually, I got deferred getting into the school. And because my music audition was so good, that is what got me accepted to going to the school. So I think the lesson here is if you worry too much about making good art and making yourself, this perfect entity of art and creativity and performance and whatever, you're probably always going to fall short because your standards are very high. And there's nothing wrong with having high standards, but you have to be realistic about where you're at. And you have to work within the confines of where you're currently at and then continue to get better over time. But just because you're not at your peak doesn't mean that you shouldn't make music, doesn't mean you shouldn't make art, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be creative. Because in order to get to your peak, you have to keep making things. And I think that that's something that people get caught up with a lot and people forget. There's like a perfectionist mindset when it comes to creating. Or like let's say for YouTube, for example, it's common for people to be like, "Oh, I can't start my YouTube channel yet because I need this camera, I need this mic, I need this editing software, I need all this gear, before I can actually start." But in reality, you got to just start doing it. And then as you work on it, you'll figure out what you actually need. Because look, like I got this webcam like, I don't know, 6 months ago. It's a pretty nice webcam, but I had some shitty one for years that worked just fine. This microphone's was cost me less than $20 new. It sounds fine. I know how to edit it in my software to make it sound better, you know? So I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't learn how to do it and over time get better at making my mic sound better. Okay, I'm getting kind of on a tangent now, but you get what I'm saying. It's really important to just make things. I know lately on my channel I've been talking a lot about sharing your work, but I'm not even talking about that in this video. I'm talking about just creating. You have to just keep making things because creativity is a muscle. I know this is so corny, but the more you work that muscle, the stronger you're going to get, the more confident you're going to get, and the more you're actually going to be able to create the things that you want to create. You're not just going to like prepare for a year on something that you have this idea or this concept for, and then in one day just make it and it's going to be perfect. That doesn't happen. That very rarely happens. There's a reason that rough drafts exist. There's a reason that like practicing exists. And I think the concept of practicing is something that's kind of lost in the modern era with art because there's not as much like regiment and like discipline behind it, which in some ways is good. I got away from that in a lot of aspects myself, but I think it's good as a creative person to have some sort of practice of practice where you're creating art, you're making something, but it's in your head, that you're going to have to keep working on it and it's going to get better. And it doesn't have to be anything specific. It can be whatever you want it to be. But just knowing that it does take time to get to that place where you feel like, all right, I'm finally doing what I wanted to be doing in this specific regard. Because down the road, that's going to change and you're going to have to just keep adapting. And that's the beauty of creating. There is no right answer. There is no final place where you're like, I'm done. I did it all. Because there's always more that you can make. So that's all I wanted to say in this video. Hope you guys get some inspiration to make some art. Just work on stuff. Don't even worry about it. Just make something. You'll get better. I put out a new video every Sunday. So if you like this video, you can come back next week for a new one. And I will see you then.